Kia ora tātou. No Canada aho, ki te noho au ki Tamaki Makaurau, ko Tamahanga, te manga, ko Omaha te moana, ko Joe, tōku ingoa. So thank you very much for all attending today. I hope you enjoy some of the insights that I'm able to present to you. Here's my little buttons. Cool. Okay, we don't need to see my face. Thank you very much. Bye. Okay, so we've done quite a lot of research over the last year, and one of the so if you want to hop on our website at any stage, we're slowly adding more and more information onto the website, in particular due to our review of retirement income policies, but also just background information and that sort of thing. Today I'm not going to talk about all of that because we'd be here forever, but I wanted to talk to you about something that we call segmentation. Some of you will be familiar with what a segmentation is. A segmentation is basically a way of understanding how certain groups of people clump together and are different from other types of people, and that's helpful for us because it means that we can target our resources, our finances, our efforts into areas that are going to best serve a segment that is relevant to us. I'm hoping that I'm also going to have time to talk about a beautiful rangatahi that we did some work with as well. Okay, so basically the way we did this is we conducted a survey. We asked lots and lots of different questions. It's actually part of our insights tracker, so it's an always-on type of mechanism. And the segmentation that I used had a decent sample size of about 2,500. Some types of segmentation really focus on demographics, so young females, for instance. But we know that not all young females think in the same way. Similarly, we can't just say Māori people feel this way. Everyone's different. So we also want to have a look at their underlying attitudes, so people feel differently about different things. So in our survey, we actually used something called a needs-based segmentation, and we had a raft of attitudinal statements that people answered, and they were things like, I'm a spender rather than a saver, or I'm generous when it comes to koha, or giving to other people. And then on the basis of doing that, that's great, so we can tell that there are attitudinally different people out there in the world, but if you're trying to reach them, it's really hard because you don't know how to find them. So that's why the demographic type of segmentation is really helpful. So what we do is we use our attitudinal statements as the basis for our understanding of people, but then we overlay on top of that demographics and behaviours. So we can say that a segment is more likely to have young males in it, for instance, but young males will also pop up in other segments. But it does at least give us some clues on how to find those people. Yeah, so I won't go into the detail about how we actually ran the segmentation. You're welcome to come and talk to me afterwards if you want the nitty-gritty. And the one thing I was going to say is with segmentations, particularly in this segmentation, you can move over the course of your life to a different segment. So you're not always going to stay in things. As we know with financial capability, as we get older, our abilities change, life happens, all that sort of thing. So what you can see here is we've got 6 segments. The difference with as I go through them, those of you who have done segmentation before probably will find some of these quite familiar, or there'll be some overlap between them. Some of the differences, having said that from certainly previous segmentations we've used, is that we have included over 65s. For some reason, our poor over 65s get missed out all the time in market research, so we've made sure that they're as part of this segmentation. The other thing is that Māori also get underrepresented. So we've made sure that with this work we've oversampled for Māori so that we're more likely to be hearing their voices. You can see that we've got 6 segments here, and they're different sizes. The biggest of which is the steady squirrelers, and we also have a large segment that we call active budgeters, and they've got funny names. The names are there to actually try and give you a sense of what their underlying attitudes and motivations towards money might be. I've kind of arranged them in a continuum in terms of sort of financial confidence and capabilities, or financial situation, not financial capabilities, financial situation. So I'm just going to go through each of them. There's lots and lots of information in behind them, but I'm just trying to give you a taste of who they actually are. So the other thing I wanted to sort of pull out is that given the breadth of people here, we have everyone from financial mentors through to investing, wealth, ministers, everything, banks, anything you want. That's the whole point of this is, and the segmentation you'll see probably will resonate, different segments will resonate to different people, depending on who you are. For some of you, you'll be seeing all of these people. So the first group is the what we call the daily distressed. So these are people who are experiencing day-to-day financial difficulties. They make up about 12% of our population on the basis of our survey. This group of people tends to be very much living day-to-day. They're experiencing social isolation, health issues. So they're really limited in terms of resources in general, whether it's emotional, social, financial. And really their skills and their knowledge, they may have some, but at the moment they're really struggling and they're really needing a hand up, or sort of a hand anyway. And this group, in terms of demographics and behaviour, so they are actually around sort of middle-aged, so sort of 45 to 64. Interestingly, a New Zealand European skew, but the other ethnicities are sitting in there amongst them as well. This group doesn't own homes. They have no financial inclusion except for buy now, pay later or loans, and they're using those really. They have no other alternative at the moment. And not surprisingly, they're pretty low in terms of contributing to KiwiSaver. There are a few in there that are contributing to KiwiSaver, but probably at really low levels, likely to be unemployed or on very low incomes. And intentionally, in terms of what they're planning on doing, really, it's just get me through this. I just want to get through this. I need someone to just get me back on the right path. That's about as far as they can see. The next group, and you'll see that there's a sort of a yellow box around the next three. This is where at Te Ara Ahunga Ora we are seeing that we can play a good role, particularly with our sorted platforms. This group is what we would call exposed because they may be doing okay, but it's not going to take much to derail them. And that's what I'm saying, that you can move segment. So life happens, and if you don't have any resilience, financial resilience or planning, you could easily end up back in that daily distressed group. So social spenders are quite a young group. They skew to female. They also skew to Māori and Pacific. So this group, they're sort of at the beginning of their financial journey. They may be a little bit older. They're sort of skew from 45 and under, but they're not feeling particularly confident about their financial skills. Money comes in, money goes out, and it's okay to borrow money, and it's really good to lend money as well. So it's about supporting your whānau and your friends and the people around you. But sometimes that can be at the detriment to your own personal finances. When it comes to thinking about money, it's just overwhelming, and we're not going to be thinking about retirement in any shape or form. The thought of having a house is pretty overwhelming. It's like I don't see how I could possibly get to that stage. So these guys are very much at the beginning of their journey. So some of them will be first anythings. So they're have just working part-time, or they might be looking for work but haven't quite got there. They, again, have very low financial inclusion except for buy now, pay later, which they're probably the biggest users of, and loans. I guess the difference between the daily distressed and the social spenders in terms of buy now, pay later is in terms of need versus want. So they may just find that they're getting themselves a bit muddled because they've got too many buy now, pay laters on, and things are sliding, and they're starting to get debt collectors and things like that coming along. Yeah, what else can I say about them? Yeah, so they're renting, or they may even still be living with their parents, and they are part-time workers or looking for work. They're open for work. They're starting to use KiwiSaver, but maybe not where we want them to be. The next group is what we call our active budgeters. It's a reasonably big-sized group. This is also a female-skewed group, a little bit older, higher incidence of stay-at-home mums or people not looking for work, but they're stay-at-home mums, they're students and things like that. These guys have actually got a pretty good basis on their day-to-day money management skills. So they actually have been around the block once or twice. They kind of know what they're doing day-to-day, but they're not really rating themselves that well. And really what we want to be doing is building on some pretty good day-to-day skills. It's just that they're very conscientious about spending. It's about protecting their family, making sure everyone's well looked after, and they want to get ahead in life, so they're very careful about how they spend their money. So they're also very risk averse. So when it comes to intentions, they'd love to be able to buy a house, but they're not quite sure how to go about it, and they don't know who to ask, and it all seems a little bit expensive. So they're keen, but they're definitely open to finding out information from people. The next group are our aspirational acquirers, and this group is actually a male skew. This is an interesting group because I think probably you could almost look at a continuum within this group. They're up to about 35. I mean, you do get them in the other age groups, but that's where they're predominantly sitting. There's also a Māori skew amongst our aspirational acquirers. And these are people who have got their foot on the ladder. They're starting to earn a bit of money, and they're feeling pretty proud of themselves. They're actually doing well. They might be in a household with a high income. It doesn't mean they personally have a high income, but they're living with a partner or they're living with flatmates, and so they're all earning. Money for them is there to be spent. They don't have a long-term focus in the sense that we think of in terms of retirement. For them, it's about, right, I quite like the idea of owning a house one day, or I'm saving up to go I'm keen on buying a new car. I want to go on holiday. So they're actually talking bigger ticket items than our social spenders, for whom for our social spenders, it's about going to cultural events or a festival or getting some new clothes or whatever. For these guys, it's a bigger deal. It's bigger stuff that they're talking about. They're more risk tolerant, so they're actually open to some of those newer types of finances like cryptocurrency. Not in a big way, but they are definitely open to it. And it's okay for them to spend money on themselves. They don't really feel that they need to be spending money on everyone else. There's no, those cultural perceptions of spending money on each other is not necessarily there. Basically intentionally, in terms of how they see money, it's I want to grow my money. I'm on the ladder, and it's time for me to start growing stuff. I deserve it. Okay, so then we get to our larger group. So we think it's sorted that those three groups probably are an area that we can really target well, because they're sort of at the beginning of their journey, and we can offer them some really tangible advice and products. And once we get to the steady squirrelers, these are an older group. They're kind of like probably about to be empty nesters. They may have some older children at home. They're probably at the prime of their life in terms of earning money. They're also quite conscientious about how they spend their money, but for them it's an underlying value is it's important that I take control of my own finances. I need to be independent. So they have been planning for that. And they're now at a stage where they're starting to think about retirement, but they're not quite there yet. So what they're going to be looking for is ways to understand what their future is actually going to be like. But they also have the children at home. So they're wanting to make sure that whatever they're doing is helping their children as well. To move on in life. So this group are very financially inclusive. They have investments and savings and KiwiSaver. They own their homes. So these guys are what we'd call sorted. So they probably don't need us quite so much, but certainly there's going to be plenty of you out there that will be seeing these people who are both cash rich and asset rich coming in. And lastly, we have the comfortable maintainers. So this is a group who are essentially retired. They aren't necessarily cash rich, but they do have some savings. They probably do own their home. Not as many contributing to KiwiSaver as you'd expect. And they, the steady squirrelers, there's a slightly higher group of Asian people within that group, but it's still predominantly New Zealand European, and definitely the comfortable maintainers are very New Zealand European. What else could I say about them? For them, really, it's about decumulation, drawdown, like trying to plan. They're quite unengaged with their finances, so it's like, I've got enough to keep me comfortable. That's really all I'm going to worry about. I don't really want to go outside of that. That's too hard. They may have an advisor who, if they have insufficient funds, otherwise they just have a savings account at the bank. So that's kind of a real brief snapshot of these guys. What I wanted to now talk about is in terms of what does that mean in terms of how we connect with these people and how we encourage behaviour change. One of the theories that we use is called the trans-theoretical model. It's called that because it uses lots of different theories that combines it. It's been around for 1 million years. But basically what it sort of says is that acknowledges that behaviour change is going to take a long time. We can't change behaviour overnight. Different people are going to require different cues, different things to actually change their behaviour. And they go through different stages. You can hop on this wheel all the way from pre-contemplation when you don't even know there's a wheel, all the way through. And then there's going to be times when you fall off the wheel and hop back on the wheel and all that sort of thing. And it's our job to try and keep them on the wheel, continually improving their financial capability. So, I guess the first one. Let's just talk at the beginning here. We've got at the pre-contemplation model, and if you recall my description of these segments, the social spenders seem to fit quite well here. These are the folk who don't know there's a wheel. They haven't realised necessarily that there's even a problem with their spending. It might be dawning on them because all of a sudden they've got 5 buy now, pay laters, and they also owe their mate some money, but then their other mate owes them some money, and now they've lost track of who owns what. We want to catch these guys before things get much worse. So this is where we're grabbing them onto the pre-contemplation stage. So we need to tell them there is a wheel. So there's lots of ways we could do it, but probably it's going to involve some advertising. And at this stage, it's got to be quite emotional. There's got to be some real emotional tags there to get people to even pay attention, because otherwise they're off doing something else. And the other thing is just through family and friends. So those are the people that they pay attention to. These are a really social bunch, and family and friends are really important to them. So if we can get word of mouth, or people just noticing, or seeing how people are doing things. So there's going to be a little bit of FOMO going on. If we can grab that FOMO, people doing well, it's like, why are you doing well? I want to do well. What are you doing? And then there's going to be that sort of conversation. There's going to be things, probably triggers like debt collection coming along on the sort of tailwind side. Similarly, they're going to be having first jobs and things, good things happening to them as well. And those are times when we want to be able to get to them. Because they're not engaged and they're not focused particularly on this, whatever we're going to talk to them about needs to be real bite-size, real small, and short-term focused and immediate payback. If I do this, you get this back. And we're going to be going through both informal and formal kind of mechanisms. So informal is social influencers, social media, videos and blogs, that sort of thing. The formal avenues will probably be things like work or ITO, or university, that sort of thing. And the sort of things we're going to be talking about to them, probably debt reduction is going to be something in there. How are we going to get rid of those buy now, pay laters, or pay off that loan? But even if they haven't got them, we want to make sure they don't get them, because it's a propensity to use them a little bit, maybe leave them for the things you really need or something like that. And also start them along that 6-step journey, which we refer to it as 6-step anyway. So, getting your emergency fund sorted out, start paying KiwiSaver, start setting up what we would call as a spending plan, not a budget. Budget doesn't seem to resonate so well. So how to set up a spending plan. And that spending plan's got to have cohort budget in there and things like that. And so really what we're talking about is this real do this and get this now. Even the concept with KiwiSaver of how to get free money out of KiwiSaver. So if the government is putting money in, if you have to put some money in, it's not very much, then the government gives you all this new free money. So, and then you don't even have to do anything about it because then you get interest and then you put a little bit more money in and the government puts even more money in and it builds up. And that's all good. But we also have to remember the importance of other people. And so if we're framing conversations with this group, it needs to be about how this is actually going to benefit your whānau, how it's going to enable you to do things with your friends, how it's going to enable you to look after your parents as they're older. So in that respect, KiwiSaver needs to be presented as a first home, not as a retirement package, because that's way too far away. I think there's implications for the CCCFA in terms of the ability for accessing this debt when maybe they don't necessarily need it. And also I think there's definitely an opportunity for those savings products that are out there that involve automation or apps. And again, just emphasising if there's any way you can have products out there that enable collective wealth. So, saving up for a home together with your whānau type thing. Okay. We'll just move on to the next phase. So this is where we're starting to, it's dawning on them, right, I'm on the wheel and I better do something about this because I'm not sure how I want this wheel to go ahead for me. And so we've got our aspirational acquirers on the one hand, and on the other hand we've got our daily distressed, and they're quite polar opposites really. And this is where life events have started coming in and they're starting to realise something has to happen. So if we're talking about advertising, so reaching out to them, that's going to involve both emotional but also rational components to it. They're tuned. They're like, yeah, okay, but I need some proof now. You need to be drawing me in. If we talk about the daily distress, these are probably the folks who are facing some headwinds in their life. So there's going to be that debt collection. They're going to be feeling quite desperate. They're finding they're having to go without. They just don't have the resources, and that's social resources, emotional resources, mental resources, financial resources. They're struggling, and so for them, really, the people that they're going to be talking to are our beautiful financial mentors out there, the social assistance agencies, churches, community groups, and really, it's small steps for these groups of people. You don't want to be running here yet, and there's also going to be significant need for advocacy or external assistance, and we'll be wanting to direct them to resources. If they are able to access internets, then the websites, talking about goal setting, debt reduction, emergency funds. That's probably as far as we're going to be wanting to go with these people. And really what we're trying to communicate with this group is there are people out there that can help you, and there is hope. You are not going to stay here. So again, in terms of, I suppose, policy perspectives, the CCCFA has some particular components there that are important. We also have to ensure that there's adequacy of and access to all the main benefits or supplements that these groups can actually access. They often don't know they're there. And for those who are renting or, holding a mortgage, we also need to make sure that, especially if they're in the older age group, that New Zealand Super is adequate for them, and that we've been doing a little bit of work. You will have probably seen, and we've got that on our website, about that sort of thing. On the flip side, we've got our aspirational acquirers. So these guys have got their foot in the ladder, they're doing well, and now they're like, right, now what? So they're starting to find that there's emerging responsibilities. They might have a new child, or they've bought a house together with their partner. they're feeling really proud of where they are, understandably, but they're kind of wanting to feel this need to progress. They want to grow. Where am I going with this? But they're still not too far in the focus. So really what's key for them is giving them control and autonomy over their finances. They'll probably be connecting with finances through work, through active engagement with KiwiSaver providers, hopefully. That's what we ideally want. But they're, and this is where I was saying this is an interesting group, depending where they are, because on the less financially mature stage, you may find that they're hanging out on Discourse or really reading Wall Street Bets type things, and maybe not listening to the best advice. Their peers are going to be where they're getting information from. But as they mature, their interest will probably move on to more of those DIY platforms. And really what we need to be communicating is that's fine if you want to be day trading, but this is how to do it successfully. And really the sort of messaging we're wanting is if you put your money, you want to put your money to work, you want to get there quicker, but we want to show you how you maximise your wins. And so from a policy perspective, I guess really we need to get this group, there is a decent whack of them who are contractors or self-employed. We have seen that because they're male skew, that they're sort of working out in building industries and trades and that sort of thing. So KiwiSaver is a conversation that we need to have with them, whether it's better to have KiwiSaver or managed funds, and if you're having managed funds, how do you make sure that those are there for later in life? These guys are going to respond really well to any cool tech when it comes to automated savings and watching their wealth grow. And also we're going to be wanting to talk to them about pathways to home ownership. Cool. So let's move around our wheel. So now we've got these people thinking. So we're looking at people who've gone, yep, I'm converted, I already know. I'm actually working really hard, but I don't know where to go and get the information from. And that's obviously going to be our active budgeters. Because as I mentioned, they already have a pretty good grounding in their day-to-day money management. They just don't have an enormous amount of confidence, and some of them don't actually have a lot of financial resources as well. But we're going to try and maximise those financial resources and give them a little bit of confidence about actually what they can do about getting ahead. So they're starting to actually actively seek information out, and this is where having a good brand that they can trust is important. They'll be talking to their family and friends. They will be engaging with advertising as well, but the whole point of the advertising here is about conversion, about getting them to actually change their behaviour. So they've moved past that contemplation phase. They're all good on that one. So I guess some of these things, again, it's going to be, it's very much about probably they may have some children. Some of them are looking after kids on their own, and then there's going to be situations where someone who is an active budgeter is living with someone who is not an active budgeter, and their behaviour is causing a few issues. So they're trying to work out how they navigate that kind of conflict, and they don't know who to go to talk to. So they're really motivated, they're really interested, but they may feel really quite demotivated because they're like, I don't even know how I'm going to get ahead. I don't know what to do, and I can't even get money together for an emergency fund. So what we want to be doing is making them feel like they can do this. This is. So we're going to be enabling them to track track progression, give them control over what they're doing, and we need to make sure they have affordable, accessible advice as well. So this group, some of the financial managers are probably going to be seeing a few of these people who are getting there, but they just need a little bit of extra help in directing to the right sort of places. But also banks, churches and community, we've got our sort of community programs, because these people aren't necessarily working, or they're only working part-time, so we need to find other ways to get to them. So it's like allowing them to, for instance, on our sorted website, we've got a whole bunch of tools where you can go, right, if I drop down my food bill here, I can do this here. If we only go on holiday once a year, then we can do this. And they can go, right, and then look, I can see that my savings are going up, and now I can track the interest, and it's just giving them tools in their hands, so they're just getting this really strong sense of, I can actually do this. And also they're going to be really keen on hearing success stories of people who maybe were in a similar situation to them and are actually improving, and they want to know, how did you do it? Because I want to do that too. The other thing, because this group is a little bit less likely to be contributing to KiwiSaver, not surprising because that's a workforce, a labour force type of product, we need to find ways that maybe some of these people can have money being paid into their account while they're at home caring for others, and encouraging that to happen. And you will have seen conversations in the media already around that sort of thing. As we know, there's not working full-time or anything is a bit tricky. Oh, is time up already? Okay, right, I'm not going to talk about my wee rangatahi. Okay, right, very quickly, is our steady squirrelers, so we'll just move around. These guys are already converted. And so really it's just... let's move that on. There we go. It's just keeping them engaged, and just using the right products and services, and helping them make change. So really it's going to be starting at that wealth end of things, financial advisors, legacy and estate planning, that sort of thing. How to control your retirement, how to pass on your hard-earned wealth onto your children, and contributing to children's KiwiSaver accounts and that sort of thing. But they're also going to be looking at sort of drawdown products. And they're going to be interested in their children's generation. And lastly, I don't know if that was a crazy thing, but anyway, we get to the comfortable maintainers. So they're the people who are retired. They don't necessarily have a lot of money, but they do have assets. So it's just enabling them to think about how, things like downsizing, how are you going to, manage, it's because they worry about longevity risks. So things like that are going to assist them on that sort of front, well as keeping them up to date. So re-engaging them at times like that sort of thing. And I'm making sure that they're also getting the benefits that they're entitled to. I'm not going to talk about my rangatahi. I'm really sad about that. But anyway, that's fine. I was just, Okay, so anyway, I'm quite happy to take any questions now.
We're so properly out of time, Jo, that we can't do that.
That's
what
fine.
I want to do, I do want to ask you, first of all, everybody is wanting to know if they can take these slides to show to their teams.
Yes.
Are they able to do that?
Yes, of course they are. They're actually a lot fuller than what I've been showing you as well, so there's a lot more information in there.
Great. And Jo, the other thing is we're going to archive the questions that have been asked so that you can take some time in your own time to, on the company time, I don't know what I'm talking about, to answer those questions and share them with people who were here today. So how about we do it that way?
Yeah.
That was fascinating. Thank you so much. A massive round of applause for Dr. Jo Gamble.